Welcome, everybody, to Black and Gold Weekly, a weekly Boston Bruins show here on YouTube, brought to you in partnership with Black and Gold Productions. I am your host, John. We are on episode 65, and it is playoff time for the Boston Bruins. Although they're not off to the best start in the series against Carolina, still a long way to go. And we'll be getting into all of that here. Joining me, per usual, is my friend Danny, co-host of the show. Danny, thanks again for coming on. Awesome to have you here. And ready to talk some Boston Bruins hockey?
Yes and no. I'm a little disappointed by Monday, but I am ready to talk Bruins hockey. I love talking Bruins hockey. And as per my number theme here, we have Brett Harkins, who wore 65 in 1997, and Andrew Bodnachuk in 2010. So number 65 is not exactly full of NHL Hall of Famers, but the Bruins have had two players rep number 65.
Andrew Bodnachuk. There's a Providence Bruins throwback. I remember him well down in Providence.
I was going to say, I remember him more so in Providence than in Boston,
Yeah.
But hey, he wore number 65, so I got to give it to him.
All right, there we go. So before we get into everything here, Bruins related, I want to give a big thank you to Mark Allred and the entire team at Black and Gold Productions. This show would not be happening without them, so a big thank you to them for all of their support. Also want to draw your attention down to the description of the video. If you are in the market for Boston Bruins apparel, NHL apparel from any of the 32 teams, or NCAA college apparel, 3 links down in the description. Would be awesome if you guys could check that out. Great variety of products. All your usual stuff like sweatshirts and hats and jerseys and all of that. But also some really cool team-branded accessory products as well that you might not first think of when you think of apparel and team-branded products. So be sure to check that out. It would be really, really helpful. But Danny, let's get into it here. We talked in the last episode. At that time, we didn't know who the Bruins' first-round opponent was going to be. We thought it was going to be Carolina, but it wasn't quite confirmed yet. Then, obviously, with what happened Friday night, last Friday, losing to Toronto, Bruins get locked into the wild card spot. They play Carolina round 1. A lot was made about the regular season matchup with the Hurricanes, which certainly never went in the Bruins' favor. And now they're in a playoff series against them. Here we are recording on Wednesday morning. So again, for you guys that are watching, you won't see this till Friday. We're recording on Wednesday, so the only game that's happened is game 1 yet. By the time you guys see this, game 2 will have happened. We'll see how that one goes. We're going to talk a lot about that and what we're hoping to see from the Bruins in game number 2 later in the show. But game 1 against the Hurricanes, 5-1 Carolina. I will say the game was closer than the score indicates, but at the end of the day, it's another loss here for the Bruins, and one that's kind of in convincing fashion for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, and we talked about good teams having the ability to make the most of their chances and finish, and that's exactly what the Hurricanes did, especially in the later stages of the game. You heard me, I think, mention last week that the third period and the later stages of a game are crucial for any team. And it's not about what you do in the first or even the second. It's about how strongly can you finish the game. And the Carolina Hurricanes, stayed on pace with the Bruins for the first 2 periods. And then they put the nail in the coffin for game 1 by executing at a high level in the third period. And that's the sign of a great team.
Yeah, absolutely. Third periods are always huge, especially in the playoffs. And, this was a game where Boston kept it close for a majority of the game, but it was really the last 15 minutes or so, Carolina just pulled away and showed why they're a 1 seed in the playoffs this year and have been one of the best teams all season long. Just completely outplayed the Bruins in the third, especially as the period went along. And Boston really didn't have enough of an answer for the Hurricanes. And you said earlier, Carolina capitalized on their chances. I think at the end of the day, it's really what this entire game came down to. If I had to sum up this game one in one sentence, Carolina converted on their opportunities, the Bruins did not. And
Yeah,
that's how we got a 5-1 game.
absolutely. And they were smart about the chances they took. I thought a lot of their shots, a lot of Carolina's shots, were very smart shots. They took high quality, high percentage shots, and they also converted them. So obviously that makes a huge difference. But I mean, when you look at this Carolina team, and we can kind of segue from here a little bit, to here a little bit, one of the things I noticed on Monday was that they were very strong on the rush, and this was something that I thought they had an advantage on against the Bruins because it seemed like the Bruins at times defensively had trouble keeping up with it. And this is something that, we've talked about team speed on this show before, but
Yep.
this is something I noticed again happening last night. And, it's kind of concerning because it seems like a lot of the Carolina Hurricanes offense is generated from that speed and from that rush, and ultimately that doesn't favor the Bruins at all whatsoever.
Yeah, no, we've certainly been talking about that before. We've been talking about it, I feel like, just around the Bruins for years, is that
For
they
like half a
struggle
decade.
they struggle with speed. Fast teams give the Bruins a lot of trouble, and the Carolina Hurricanes are a fast team, and they certainly played fast on Monday night. And you're right. The rushes, the odd man rushes, just favor Carolina over and over and over again. And
Mhm.
if that's going to be the kind of series that this is, then Boston's in a lot of trouble because Carolina is going to win that kind of series. I think there's a lot of things that the Bruins need to kind of tighten up with if they're going to get back in this series and win and be able to take on the Hurricanes and make this a long, hard series and maybe even win it. There's a lot of tightening up that has to happen with Boston because Carolina is a team. I mean, they only had 25 shots on goal in this game. They scored 5 goals. I
Yep.
mean, to talk about a high conversion rate there for the Hurricanes. Boston had 36 shots, but so many of them felt like a waste of time.
Yep.
Weren't high quality chances, not nearly enough traffic in front of the net. Antti Ranta did have to make some huge saves in goal for Carolina, especially in the first period. He had a monster first period for
He
Carolina.
did.
But again, as the game went along, the Hurricanes got better, and the Bruins weren't able to keep up with that level that they played at in the first.
When you have a speed team like the Carolina Hurricanes have, it allows you to kind of find your footing in the first and second period because as the Hurricanes, you probably realize that the Bruins aren't as fast as you, and you can exploit that in different situations.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the opening game of a series, for both teams, it was about getting their feet under them in the first two periods. The Hurricanes did a nice job of staying in the game, and then they said, "Okay, we have the speed advantage. We can begin to open up and play our game, and we can execute." And that's exactly what they did. And when you look at, I just feel like the Hurricanes have a lot of snipers.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that can really, you know, make contested shots, to use a basketball term, but
Mm-hmm.
they have guys that can fit the puck into crazy areas of the goal, and they have guys who can also just simply break away one on one, that
Yep.
type of speed. So that speed allows them to play differently and in different ways, and it also, just getting back to the rush really quick, it allows them to try to start the rush differently from getting the puck out of their own zone and starting the rush that way to
Mm-hmm.
banking a pass off the glass and getting an odd man advantage off of a bounced puck.
Yep.
They just have different things that they can do that their speed allows them to do that really might give the Bruins trouble as the series progresses.
Yeah, we really saw that on the third goal for Carolina that Teuvo Teravainen scored. That
Hmm.
was a 2-on-1 from like the red line in, and I
Yep.
mean just great pass across, and Teravainen roofs it. And it's Boston got caught pinching. They got by the D, and then straight ahead speed up the ice, down they go, and Boston has nobody that can catch that. And
Yep.
another thing, Carolina, is skilled of a team as they are, as fast of a team as they are, is also very physical and also loves the board battles and the
Mhm.
gritty style of play too. And there seems to be this thinking that, if you're a fast and skilled team, then you're soft and not physical. Or if you're a big physical rough and tumble team, then you can't have speed as well. And that's not the case, because Carolina is both. Carolina is a very physical hockey team, and they win the board battles. They go to the front of the net, and they also have a ton of speed and skill. The Florida Panthers are the same way. Very physical, very tough team, but also tons of talent and speed. There are more teams like that around the league as well. But Carolina is one of those teams that can do it all. The Hurricanes had 48 hits in this game, which they out-hit the Bruins 48-42. And their first 2 goals directly came from having traffic in front of the net. And I think this is something that the Bruins need to do a heck of a lot more of if they're going to come back in this series. The first goal by the Hurricanes was a deflection goal by Seth Jarvis, where he was in front of the net and was able to get a stick on the puck and deflect it by Ullmark. And then the second goal by Nino Niederreiter had like 4 guys in front of the net. There were like 2 Hurricanes and 2 Bruins all blocking Ullmark's vision. He didn't even see the puck. You could tell by his reaction to it that he was just standing there hoping it hit him. Didn't even see the puck, and it goes up and over his shoulder and in. I mean, Boston did not get nearly enough guys to the front of the net, not nearly enough rebound chances, not nearly enough of getting in the grill of Antti Raanta, and made it way too easy for him to make saves, especially after the first period. I think they were pretty good in the first, but after that, it went away and they stopped doing it. They need way more traffic in front.
And you know what? The Hurricanes will take that all day. They will take that all day. You're playing into their hands.
Yep.
Easy saves for the goalie. They don't have to worry about too much traffic in front, and that allows them to kind of control the pace of the game and, really kind of keep their game plan on track. And I think that it does not bode well for the Bruins.
No, I completely agree. I mean, Carolina certainly was the better team, and they look like the better team. And I think Boston's going to have to make some adjustments if they're going to come back, because they can't play an up-and-down style of game with Carolina. That's not going to go well for them. They've got to really try and tighten things up defensively. And I think they just need to muddy the game up. If this is a skill game, Carolina's going to outskill you. They're going to win. They're going to outplay you that way. And we were talking before the show. I think the biggest thing here for Boston is to muddy the game up. Make it sloppy. Make it ugly. And that's how the Bruins are going to be able to find a way to get some wins against this team. If they just go back and forth, chance for chance, Carolina's going to take that. And especially, if they continue to bring the physicality, win the board battles like they've been, winning the face-off dot like they did. I mean, Carolina won 57% of the face-offs in game number 1. That's possession to the Canes right away. I mean, they're going to take advantage of that, and they did. And I think if you're the Bruins, you've got to muddy the game up. You're not going to outskill the Carolina Hurricanes. You make this a chip and chase game, play tight defensively, get in on the forecheck, bang some bodies, and then get the puck to the net with traffic, bodies in front, guys in the crease. If I'm the Boston Bruins the rest of the way here, my strategy is once we get the puck into the offensive zone, throw everything possible at the net, and I want 2 guys in the crease area at all times. I want bodies in front, throw everything in at the net, get a rebound, get a deflection. You're not going to score pretty goals against Carolina. The Hurricanes were the best defensive team in the NHL this season. They led the league with only 2.44 goals against per game. You are not going to score pretty goals against a team that's this good defensively. Get the puck in front, get it on goal, and hope for second chance opportunities, hope for some deflections, get in the grill of the goaltender, make his night miserable, and chip in some dirty goals. And that's how the Bruins are going to be able to score on this team. If they can't do that, Carolina runs away with this series.
And I don't know if they can. That's my thing. And I said this to you off air. I don't know if they can. They have a lot of players that can score pretty goals and, all these, nice goals that you see on the highlight reel, but I don't know if they have enough gritty players to score those chippy, in front of the net goals. And that's concerning because that's what you need in the playoffs. And so far, I mean, it's only one game, but we're seeing how the contrast in style is really alarming if you're a Bruins fan.
Yeah, Craig Smith ripping the puck from 25 feet out with nobody in front of the net is not going to score you any goals.
Right.
That's why the shot numbers say, oh, Boston outshot them 36-25. How many of those 36 shots were real, genuine scoring opportunities, and how many of them were easy saves for Antti Raanta? Because I remember a lot of easy saves for Antti Raanta, especially after the first period. Again,
Yeah.
the first, Boston played well. I thought they had some traffic in front. Raanta had to make some really nice stops early in that game. But after that, they got worse as the game went along.
It's like they strayed away from what was working in the first period. And it was a little interesting because, now that relieved some pressure off of the Hurricanes as well. They were able to, really kind of feel comfortable with where they were at in the game. And if you're the Bruins, you don't want to make the Hurricanes feel comfortable because if you do, you're going to lose 9 times out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, this just kind of sums up, some of the issues that the Bruins have had the entire season. They've been able to get shots. I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. They get shots, but their conversion rate is pretty low at times. They
have
got
no
better.
finish.
Yeah, they got better at it a little bit in the second half of the season, but this was still statistic. Like you would see 40-something shots and 2 goals, and it wouldn't always be a good game by the goaltender.
Yeah.
And the lack of finishing ability is showing its head. And I don't know if you want to kind of segue into this, but the power play is still not where it needs to be.
I mean the power play, and this series is the worst possible matchup for the Bruins, who are really struggling on the power play and trying to get it going. Carolina is the best penalty kill in the NHL, 88% on the PK this year for Carolina. So they're literally almost 90%, killing off 9 out of 10 penalties against. They don't take a lot of penalties, first of all. So you're not going to get a ton of opportunities. And then on the few opportunities that you do get, your chances of scoring are literally about 10% if you're the Bruins. So this is not a good matchup for the Bruins as far as power play versus penalty kill goes. They were 0 for 3 in game number 1. I am not surprised. I think Boston's power play is really, really going to struggle against the Canes, who have such an incredibly good penalty kill. And they showed in game 1. I mean, Carolina's penalty kill just kind of ate the Bruins' lunch when they had the man advantage.
And when you're already struggling to score in general, you really want a solid power play because those are the opportunities that you have to have a man advantage. And if you can't even land those, then it makes the uphill climb even more tough.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you're struggling to put the puck in the net, your power play needs to be a catalyst. Your power play needs to be, one of those, the opportunity to get a goal, to get something in the net. And for the Bruins, it just isn't right now. It's not. And, I mean, you take away that Buffalo game at the end of the season, and this power play's been awful for the last month. And I don't think it's going to get any better against the Hurricanes. That team's too good defensively and too good on the penalty kill. Carolina is one of the most structured teams in the league, if not the most structured. They're not going to give anything up easily. You're going to have to muddy it up, muck it up in the corner, muck it up in the front of the net, and score dirty goals against this team. That's the only way to beat them.
The time to work on things and get better at things, that's over. you need to be at your best in all facets when you head into the playoffs. And at the tail end of the regular season, we mentioned the power play as something that could potentially be a concern. I remember talking about it, what was it, 2 weeks ago or last week? I'm losing track of my days here. But the last show, I remember we were talking about the power play
Yeah,
being
I
an
think it
area
was
of
last
concern.
week. Yeah, because
Yeah,
they were
last week.
still awful on the power play.
And so if you're looking for any, sort of like participation award for a good power play against the Hurricanes, you're not going to get it at all.
No.
You're not going to get it. And I mean, I don't know. And we can kind of get into this a little bit. I don't know, what to expect really in game two. And that's another thing we said last week. We never know what we're going to get with this Bruins team.
Yeah, I mean, we need a full 60 minutes. I do know that.
Mm.
If Boston's going to have any chance of beating Carolina, they've got to be able to put a full 60 minutes together. And again, game one, I mean, they were in it until the last 15 minutes. I mean, this was a game that they were in, and it was close until the last 15 minutes. And they put together a pretty solid 45 minutes on the road, but they couldn't put together the full 60. And it ended up coming back to bite them. I think at the end of the day, Carolina's speed game and they're just being a more skilled team kind of showed through at the end, and Boston's defense had no answer for them. I do want to talk about the Bruins defense here because, obviously the fifth goal was an empty netter, so that one, you kind of throw that one away, but they still gave up 4 goals. Bruce Cassidy has already said that he's going to be switching up the D pairs for game number 2. Matt Grzelcyk is going to go to the top pairing with Charlie McAvoy, and Brandon Carlo will be playing with Hampus Lindholm. Carlo was -2 in game 1. Grzelcyk was -3. I thought that pairing really, really looked bad, especially defensively. Looked bad in this game. Actually, Forbort and Clifton, I almost think they didn't play a ton. They only played about 15 minutes, but they were at least calm and somewhat structured out there on the ice. I thought it was the top defense groups for Boston that really struggled.
Yeah, and it's not interesting, but it's encouraging that Cassidy is making a switch for Wednesday night. He's a coach that is not afraid to make adjustments when necessary, and defense by and large has been a problem for the Bruins the entire season, and this was an area where I personally thought, even with the acquisition of Hampus Lindholm, this was one of my areas where I thought that the Bruins, I wasn't overly confident, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just based on what they did over the course of the season, and I'm glad they're switching things up. Defense is going to have to come to play for game 2. They really are. And, they're going to have to give the goaltender some help and just weather the hurricane, no pun intended, truthfully,
Yeah.
because these guys can score on you fast, they can score on you quick, and they can score on you in a variety of ways. It is a tall task to ask for the defense because I do think speed, again, will come into play here, but I like the adjustments that Bruce Cassidy is making because obviously whatever they did in game 1 did not work, so I give him credit for making that adjustment.
Yeah, this is very much a necessary adjustment. I'm glad to see Grzelcyk going up with McAvoy. I think that's a much better pairing than Grzelcyk and Carlo. I've never been a big fan of Grzelcyk and Carlo together, despite whatever numbers people can pull out. It says that they're fine together. I've just watching the games, I've never been a big fan of it. I don't like Grzelcyk and Carlo together. I don't think that pairing has looked really good for at any point in an extended period of time. They've had good games, sure, but that pairing has never been good for an extended period of time that I've watched. And I like Grzelcyk with McAvoy a lot better. The problem is I also really like Lindholm and McAvoy, and I think there's a common denominator there that McAvoy just makes whoever he's playing with a lot better. But I think, this was obviously a necessary change given the way that game one went. And I think, if McAvoy and Grizzlick can play like they usually do together, which is very well, that might be able to settle things down. They can log some big minutes, and they might be able to keep things under wraps defensively and really turn something in Boston's favor there. Lindholm and Carlo, we haven't really seen them together much, but I'm interested to see it. I mean, Lindholm's been very solid since coming over at the trade deadline from Anaheim, and I think he might be a good guy to play with Carlo. Carlo has not had his best year this year. It's not been a great one for Brandon Carlo. He just hasn't had the same impact, I think, that he has in years past. I think there's been a lot of games where he's been very much outskated. He's slow. It's very apparent against certain teams that there are guys in the league that can just skate around him, and it's really shown through this season. To me, Carlo's not been impressive this year, and maybe Lindholm can kind of, I don't know, give him a new partner, a new kind of look on things, and a chance to hit that reset button a little bit. But definitely need the top 4D to be a lot better in game number 2, and I would probably expect more of the same from your bottom pair. They're not going to play a ton, probably about 15 or so minutes, and as long as they're just not giving anything up, then you're getting what you can out of that bottom pair.
Yeah, and when you talk about Carlo, this is a guy that the Bruins signed to a long-term deal.
Yeah.
They signed Carlo to a long-term deal, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you sign Carlo to a long-term deal, you want him to be kind of, a huge piece of that defensive core.
He's supposed to be the shutdown guy.
Yeah, and
he hasn't really been this year.
He hasn't really been this year, and it's a little bit concerning because, again, I know that we talk about the injuries a lot, but I do think that is a little bit of a factor when talking about Carlo, and I'm interested to see how he does the rest of the playoff series because he has been not on a downturn, but he has struggled as of late, and if he plays better, I would feel a little bit better of what he can bring to the table, but right now, he's not where he needs to be, and as much as McAvoy is an important piece of the Bruins defense, Carlo is equally as important as well in terms of his skill and what he can bring when he is on his game.
Yeah, no, they need him, no doubt about it. I mean, McAvoy can try and carry the top pairing as much as he wants, but you're not going to win a playoff series against a top 3 team in the NHL with only one defense pairing playing well. So Carlo's really going to have to step up his game. Grizzlick needs to be better. I think he will be paired back with McAvoy. Obviously McAvoy is just an absolute stud on the back end. He can't do it all himself. And I'm really interested to see how Lindholm looks with Carlo because we really haven't seen a lot of that. So I hope it's not much of an adjustment and it's not much of a feeling out process. They need to be ready to go from the drop of the puck at the top of their game.
Yeah, the time to make adjustments, like I just said, is over. And hopefully this is something that can work because truthfully, it's about bending but not breaking because I think the Hurricanes truthfully are going to get, their goals and things like that. Mm-hmm. But if the Bruins defense can just give the goaltenders even just a little bit more time to see the puck and try to avoid as many odd man rushes as possible, then I think Boston has a chance. We'll see if these lineup changes make any difference. And at this point, it's just like, how can the Bruins stop the, avalanche of goals and speed that the Hurricanes bring to the table?
Yeah, if you look back, going back to the regular season, the Hurricanes outscored the Bruins 16-1 in their 3 games, and now they start out the playoffs with a 5-1 win. If you combine that together, Carolina's outscored Boston 21-2 this year. The Bruins have got to find a way to score on the Hurricanes, which they have not been able to do at really all year long, And they also need to find a way to keep the puck out of their net. And Linus Ullmark in goal, first ever playoff game for him on Monday. I wouldn't blame him for the goals against, but he certainly wasn't stealing anything either. He got outplayed. Antti Ranta down at the other end was certainly better, stopping 35 out of 36 than Ullmark, who only had 20 saves on 24 shots against him. And again, the goals really weren't his fault. The first one was a deflection by Jarvis. The second one, Niederreiter's shot from out high, he didn't see at all. You could tell by his reaction. He never saw the puck. He was screened. The third goal was a 2-on-1 break that Teravainen put top shelf. And then Trocheck scored the fluky one that he bounced in off the back of Ullmark from below the goal line. That's really the only one that I think you could kind of go to Ullmark and be like, come on, dude. Like, how does that end up in the net? But that was one of those fluky goals that he just kind of backhanded up off the back of him and in. And I guess Ullmark could have maybe held the post better, but overall, I certainly think there were much bigger issues for the Bruins than goaltending, but Ullmark certainly didn't go out there and try and steal the game either. They're going back to him in Game 2, which, there was some question about whether or not we would see Swayman. What do you think about the Bruins giving Ullmark Game 2 and giving him a chance to rebound here?
The Bruins, I think, are in a rock and a hard place when it comes to goaltending right now. Sure, Ullmark didn't play bad, but like we mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the show, this is his first real playoff action.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate that he has to face an offensive team as potent as the Hurricanes. Like you said, I didn't think it was all his fault on Monday. The defense playing in front of him certainly did him no favors. But I think him going back for Game 2, I think that's the right move because he's a veteran and he can win games. With that being said, I don't think there is any guarantee that he's the de facto starting goaltender the rest of the way. I think the Bruins are still trying to figure out the best possible matchup in terms of who's in net and what is the best, who is the best goaltender that can put them in a position to succeed. Now this is interesting because if they go Ullmark the whole series and he struggles, then you can't necessarily go to Jeremy Swayman, and expect him to perform at a high level when he hasn't even started a game. On that same token, you can't, Jeremy Swayman is still technically a rookie, so he hasn't been in the playoffs yet either. So the goaltending issue of experience and both goaltenders, kind of struggling here doesn't work in the Bruins' favor. Now, when I say struggling, I don't mean that they're playing bad, but as we kind of just talked about, the Hurricanes will take advantage of every mistake you make, and they will fire shots at you. So by default, that's when a goaltender has to take over the game in his hands, and I don't know if Swayman could do that. I have more confidence in Ullmark to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with going back to Ullmark for Game 2. First ever playoff game. The goals really weren't his fault. I think it'd be different if Ullmark went out there and gave up 2 softies or 3 softies and the Bruins ended up losing, then I think that, you're more inclined to make a change there. But with the goals not really being Ullmark's fault, I think you give him another shot. He clearly won the starting job down the stretch. He was a better goaltender the last 6 weeks of the season, so he deserved to get the start. And I think you give him a chance to bounce back in game number 2 and see if he can, play a little bit better, keep making all the saves that he needs to make, and puts the team in a position to win. Again, I really don't think it was on the goaltending.
No.
I think there were a lot bigger issues for the Bruins, but if Ullmark goes out there and gives up another 4, and Bruins lose, 4-1, 5-1, 5-2, something like that again, then I really think going back to Boston you think about switching things up. Like if Boston goes down 0-2 in this series, and if Ullmark gives up another 4 or 5 goals, then I think you probably go with Swayman in game 3, because what you don't want is to continually watch Ullmark give up 3, 4, 5 goals the entire series, keep sticking with him, and then always have that what if in the back of your head as to, what if they had put Swayman in? What if they had given the kid a shot? Just to at least see what he could do. Heck, maybe they put Swayman in and he gets lit up for 6. Who knows? But maybe they put Swayman in and he holds them to 1, and the Bruins win a 2-1 game. And all of a sudden the series changes right there. If you don't give Swayman at least a look, if the Bruins continue to lose in this series, there's always going to be that what if of, why didn't you play him? What if you had? Whereas, like, obviously now, if Ullmark comes out and wins game 2, then Ullmark's your goaltender. But I'm talking about if he continues to give up 3, 4, 5 goals over these next games, at some point, I think you do need to give Swayman a shot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you have 2 goalies for a reason, right? You have a starter and you have a backup. Usually, you want the starter to obviously play at the higher level, but you also want a solid backup. If the Bruins are struggling with it's kind of like the regular season. If Allmark is struggling, put Swayman in there, hope he has a good game, and then at least you can have one goaltender performing well.
Yep.
And you don't have to worry about, the length of a season or, resting him for XYZ road trip. You can play him again. You can play him again if he works out, and if he doesn't work out, you go back with Ullmark.
Yep.
It's really, at this point, what have you done for me lately? That's the business of sports, and when you look at the Bruins goaltenders right now, you're just trying to find a balance or something that can, or some sort of consistency or some level of consistency. And I think it would be wise if Allmark struggles on Wednesday night to at least try Swayman, because at this point you're throwing all your, tools in the chest and using all the resources you have, because it's the playoffs and there's no turning back if you lose a series.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Bruins lose game 2 Wednesday night, they're down 0-2 in the series. You've gotta go into full desperation mode at that point. I mean, every game from there on out is pretty much a must-win, because if to have any chance of coming back, you got to win 4 out of 5. Now, do you really think that the Bruins are going to win 4 out of 5 against the Carolina Hurricanes?
No.
That's why I think that taking at least one of these first 2 games is so important. The Bruins have to win a road game to win this series. And I really think it's important that they take one of these first 2. Obviously, now with the loss, it's not going to be game 1. So I think they really need to take game number 2, because if you go down 0-2 in this series, all Carolina's got to do is win a couple more. And you've got to try and beat them 4 out of 5 times against a team that you are now 0-4 against over the course of this season, regular season and postseason combined. So, I mean, it really puts a lot of pressure on game number 2. And the Bruins, trying to steal a game on the road. And if they're not able to, it puts all the pressure on the Bruins heading back to Boston to a point where they really can't afford to lose another game. Because if they go down 3-0 or even 3-1, I think this series is over.
And also, each goaltender, Ullmark and Swayman, has played the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep.
The other goaltender who played in one of the games against the Hurricanes in the regular season was Tuukka Rask.
Yep.
And so, if you are the Bruins and you know that the Hurricanes have seen Ullmark multiple times now, both in the regular season and in the postseason, if he starts on Wednesday, Hurricanes win, go down 0-2, at least the Hurricanes don't have as much film on Jeremy Swayman against them as they would with Ullmark. So his tendencies as a goaltender, meaning Swayman, may be a bit more hidden. I don't know. Just something to think about. That's what I would think about if I was the Hurricanes. Okay, I'm in the film room. I'm watching certain tendencies for Ullmark, what his weaknesses are, what his strengths are. With Swayman, I think Swayman faced him, I want to say it was the final game of the regular season. I could be wrong because I remember Rask did the October game, and then Allmark was in net for the January game, I believe. You don't have as much film on Swayman. So if I'm the Bruins and I want to mix it up, I would go with Swayman if Allmark struggles.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if Olmark, again, like I said, if he gives up another 4 goals here in game 2, then you've got to start Swayman in game 3 and at least give it a chance and try and see if he can turn things around. But just it doesn't feel like the Bruins have a goalie that I trust to steal a series. Like, I don't think they have that elite goaltender that I think is going to come in and save the team and steal a series. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that keeps the Bruins, in my mind, as not a true Stanley Cup contender. They're certainly a playoff team, but I don't think they're a true team that's going to win a Stanley Cup until Swayman develops into that. Because, you need elite goaltending, especially as you get deeper into the playoffs. I mean, it's one thing to win a round or two with just good goaltending, which I think the Bruins have good goaltending right now, but they don't have elite goaltending. And I think as you get later into the playoffs, you have to have elite goaltending. And the Bruins, the way that they're going, may not even have to worry about going deeper into the playoffs because Carolina is going to be a tough team to try and win against 4 times here.
And I don't think Tuukka Rask, if he was still around, would have made much of a difference in the series.
No.
Yep.
No.
I don't think so either because
no difference.
I know there's a contingent of fans that say, "Well, if Tuukka Rask, I don't think it would have made much."
Not at this point. Prime Tuukka maybe, like 2013, 2014 Tuukka maybe, but Tuukka at this point,
2021, 22 Tuukka.
Yeah, not Tuukka from this year, or it wouldn't have made a difference.
Which highlights, not a position of need, but goaltending development for 2022, 2023 is a major priority.
Well, they need Swayman to develop into a franchise guy, which he's certainly shown flashes of.
Yeah.
And I think he absolutely has the potential to do it, and I think he will. I love what I've seen overall from Jeremy Swayman. He's just very young still. This is not as good as Jeremy Swayman is going to get. He's a very good goaltender right now. I don't think he's an elite goaltender. He's not going to outduel the Igor Shesterkins and the Andrei Vasilevskis of the world, or even the Darcy Kempers of the world. He's not going to outduel guys like that. But I think, a couple years from now, he might be able to. He might be one of the top goalies in the league a few years from now, but that doesn't help the Bruins right now this year.
Correct.
Like, right now, they have good goaltending, but they don't have elite goaltending.
Right, and you need elite goaltending to win playoff games. I mean, it seems like the Bruins have so much talent. It just seems like they don't have enough. You know what I mean? Like when you look at Carolina,
well, I think that the Bruins don't have enough because I think Carolina's a more talented team. They have a better roster.
Offensively, I do think they have enough. Defensively, I'm not sure. And goaltending, I'm not sure. I think we rely too much on the older players, Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasta, and again, it's where the depth pieces come into play, and I'm not sure if they will be able to the series with how good the Hurricanes' defense is.
Oh, a third line needs to get going.
Yeah,
that line, as good as they were for a good stretch of the second half of the season, has kind of disappeared recently. And I'll tell you this, the Boston Bruins are not beating the Carolina Hurricanes without some sort of third line production. Coyle, Frederick, and Smith have got to get it going because the Bruins are not winning this series without production from those 3.
Correct. And, I'm specifically looking at Coyle because I feel like he is, very skilled in terms of puck movement and the way he can handle his stick. And
he's also getting paid over $5 million a year. He better show up.
He better show up, and he is getting paid a huge contract. And he did for the regular season, but that doesn't matter now. And, we just need additional players to continue to step up. And it seems like we have this conversation every single playoff series. I mean, we need the depth guys to step up, but
Yep.
can they? We don't know.
Yeah, no, it is a lot of the same questions. Now, obviously, it's only been one game against Carolina, and
Yeah.
one game certainly doesn't win or lose you a series. But I think, part of the reason I'm so pessimistic about Carolina is what happened in the regular season. Like, if this was a team that the Bruins had, let's say it was Bruins Capitals again, and overall the Bruins played the Capitals very well this regular season. And we know that they beat them in the playoffs last year. If this was Bruins Capitals again, and hey, the Bruins lost the first game 5-1, and it was only game one, I would still have a lot of confidence in the Bruins' ability to come back and still win the series. But because it's Carolina, and because I think that Carolina is just a flat out better hockey team than the Boston Bruins, I'm a lot more pessimistic about it. And the fact that Carolina crushed the Bruins the way that they did in the regular season makes me a lot more pessimistic about it. And at the end of the day, I think that the Bruins are overmatched here. And again, they're going to have to really try and find a way to get something going in this series and gain some momentum. And like I said earlier, I think the best way to do this is to try and make it a really sloppy, ugly game. That is how you can beat the Hurricanes. I think that's really Boston's only shot, is if they really make it a sloppy, ugly, mucky game where they can get some dirty goals and try and win it 3-2 or something like that.
Can they though? That's my big question. Can they? Do they have enough players to do that? Sure, they have Craig Smith.
Oh, they got to get everybody to buy in to try and play that style. It's all about buy-in, and that's the coach's job.
And I don't know if that's going to happen. I really don't know. I really do have my doubts. And I didn't like this matchup on paper before the playoffs started. I didn't like this matchup during the regular season, and I sure as heck don't like this matchup right now for Boston.
Yeah, and I mean, Carolina is such a deep team too. Like Carolina's third line last night ate the Bruins for lunch. Whichever line they put them out against. Didn't matter. Carolina's third line of Stahl, Niederreiter, and Fost just ate the Bruins for lunch. And if they're going to get that kind of play from their bottom six, Boston, I don't see matching that. I don't think Boston has the bottom six to match that. Unless that Coyle line really gets back to playing like they did when they first got put together. And they were so good for the Bruins for those first few weeks when they first played together. They need to get back playing like that, or Boston's in a lot of trouble.
Doesn't this feel like the conversation we had after the Islanders series last year?
Very similar, yeah.
I was just having deja vu. But I think, honestly, the Bruins have solid pieces, but overall, I think there needs to be changes in how the team evaluates talent, the players on the roster, and development. Again, I know I've said this till I'm blue in the face, but when you look at the Carolina Hurricanes, what do they have? Young players, speed, and the ability to develop talent.
An incredible structure.
Oh, and incredible structure. Very technically sound hockey team.
Yep.
And it feels like as teams like the Florida Panthers and Carolina Hurricanes get better and develop, and even to some extent, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
We still trot out the same team, hoping for the same results with minor patchwork signings. And I'm not talking about a guy like Hampus Lindholm, because that was not a minor patchwork trade. That was a big deal.
Yep.
But he's one piece.
Yep.
And what you're seeing here is the accumulation of past years of failing to develop, failing to adjust to more of a speed game, or adjusting too late, and also bad personnel decisions. The reason why the Hurricanes got to where they are right now and why they were one of the top teams in the league was because they had been building and doing the right things for years. You remember 2019 when they were an up-and-coming young team, and they weren't quite there yet because the Bruins, I believe, swept them when they played the Hurricanes in 2019. But
Yep.
you saw signs. You saw them trying new things and developing players. It feels like we've tried out the same roster for the past 5 years or so, and we've tried to, get the sneaky good undrafted free agent, but it's not working. It's not
Yep.
working, and we're seeing that. End of my
Yes.
rant.
Yeah. So, again, Boston has nobody producing in their lineup that's been drafted later than 2017. 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021 drafts, nobody that the Bruins have drafted has played an NHL game yet. And Jeremy Swayman is really the only one from 2017 because Jack Studnicka has not been able to solidify himself as an NHLer and is back down in Providence. Urho Vakanainen played 45 games and they traded him away. Obviously, McAvoy and Frederick from 2016's draft have ended up, becoming NHLers. At least McAvoy is one of the best defensemen in the league. Frederick's become a decent bottom six guy, but I mean, on the contrast here, Carolina, they're getting. I mean, Seth Jarvis was a first-round pick for them in 2020. He had 40 points in 68 games this year in his rookie season. Andrei Svechnikov was their first pick in 2018, second overall. He has 209 points in 283 games and is a first-line player for them. Marty Necas for Carolina, 203 games played now, 119 points. I mean, they've gotten 3 players that they've drafted from 2017 on that are having significant impacts in their lineup from Necas, Svechnikov, and Jarvis. The Bruins from 2017 on have Swayman, and that is it.
And since I'm a football writer, I'd kind of like to use a football analogy. I know this is a hockey show, but when you look at a team like the Alabama Crimson Tide, right, and you look at college football, and the Alabama Crimson Tide, they have been building this for years. They have been recruiting for years. They have been, going to certain high schools and building connections for years. They have been building and building and building and building for years to make a solid football team, and now they are one of the top programs in the country. In order to have a good team in any sport, you have to start building early on, and then you'll see the fruits of your labor, whether it be draft picks, like in the case of the Carolina Hurricanes, and you mentioned Seth Jarvis, a relative newcomer onto the scene who's made an impact, or players from previous drafts. It's all a result of building and making smart personnel decisions.
Yep.
And it allows you to have a cushion for, talent that can come up in the system and make an impact at the NHL level. And it's right now the Bruins are sort of working towards that. I know we talked about Fabian Lysell off air, but
I was just going to bring him up because he might be the game changer here for Boston.
He might be the game changer for Boston. I totally agree with that. I love him, but they need more than that. I mean, look at Florida. They have Huberdeau and what's the other one there?
Ekblad.
Barkov. There we go. Ekblad, Barkov.
Well, Florida also stunk for a long, long time to be able to draft high enough to get those guys.
They did, but you can also draft high and have it never pan out.
Yeah, true.
I mean,
and you can also make trades to get some earlier picks, especially that's what Carolina's done. I mean, Carolina was picking in the top 15 for a reason. It is not because they stunk 2 years ago. It's because they made some very nice trades and they were able to get some solid picks that way as well. And Boston, we haven't really seen that from because Boston hasn't had the prospects that are high value enough to trade for those high picks.
When you build a roster, there are multiple ways you can do it, but you have to have the assets to be able to do it, whether it be good draft positioning, prospects you can deal, team-friendly contracts that expire after 1 year.
Yep.
I mean, there's all sorts of ways to build a team, and the Bruins have done Zippo of it, and now we're seeing it. End of the rant. I just pulled a John rant, but that's my piece.
So Fabian Lysell is the one that I want to talk about
Mm.
because he could end up being a game changer.
Mm.
Winger playing in the WHL right now, currently in the playoffs. 62 points in 53 games, his first season in North America this past year with the Vancouver Giants out in the WHL after playing for years in Sweden. I thought he was a steal of a pick at
I did
21st
too.
overall.
I really did too.
actually had Lysell in the top 15 of my draft rankings for last year's draft, and he slipped all the way to 21 for the Bruins. I think this is a huge, huge player and very important player that this works out for Boston. He has 15 points. So six games in the playoffs so far with Vancouver. His team as the 8 seed actually just upset the number 1 seed, which I believe is the first time ever in the WHL that an 8 has beaten a 1 in the first round of the playoffs. He had 15 points in 6 games in this postseason series. I mean, 4 goals, 11 assists in 6 games. This is a kid with a ton of talent that looks like, man, I'm looking at him to potentially make the team next year.
Yep. Especially when you look at, some of the tough decisions that the Bruins may have to make this offseason.
Yep.
I could definitely see him making the team next year. I mean, he is a game-changing player. He's versatile. You look at even just the beginning of when, 53 games since the beginning of the season, he's been on fire. 22 goals, 40 assists for 62 points.
Yep.
And he is a playmaker. He can do it all. He's not one-dimensional, and that's the type of player that the Bruins need a lot of on their roster. And Lysell is a good start. I was with you. I remember watching your draft show for your YouTube channel, and when they picked Lysell, you were like, whoa, that is an absolute steal. And I remember texting you, I'm like, wow, we just got Fabian Lysell. This is pretty cool. So I'm really hoping he can pan out because I do think he can be a key piece. And didn't we say that PJ Axelsson was scouting Sweden? Or was it somebody else?
PJ Axelsson is the European scouting coordinator for the Bruins.
Okay. All right, so I mean, Axelsson in his own right was a very good hockey player, and maybe he landed on Lysell. It's certainly looking like it.
Yeah, this really needs to hit for the Bruins. That pick really needs to hit for the Bruins, and that could really bolster the future if they're able to. I'm hoping that he's a producer next year. If not, maybe they give him one more year before they bump him to the NHL level. Certainly by 2023, 2024, he's got to be up in that Boston lineup and being a significant impact player.
With the way that teams are trending right now and their young talent, I won't go into it again, but I would definitely consider making the move for next season.
Maybe he can be the Bruins version of Seth Jarvis. Hopefully so.
That would be nice. I mean, because you look at the core of the roster, obviously they're getting older, and now it's time to see what you have for the future. And you look at Lysell, he's only 19 years old.
Yep.
And I'm not saying he is like a Bergeron in terms of play style, but his longevity. Bergeron came into the league at 19 as well?
18.
Was it 19 as well? 18?
His draft, he played immediately up in Boston.
Yep. I remember. I actually do remember him playing immediately up in Boston. I just wasn't sure the age. So you're looking at a player in Lysell with tons of scoring potential, longevity potential, and kind of a cornerstone of the Bruins' future. I would want to have him up here next year. Yeah. I mean, I really think that the Bruins, they need him now, but I would want him on the roster for sure next year.
All right, so there we have it. The Boston Bruins, 1 game in as of us recording this to the Carolina Hurricanes series, down 1-0 in the series. They're going to have to come back with a big game too, because I think if Boston has any chance of winning this one, they've got to at least split on the road in Carolina to start this and make it 1-1. I think if they go down 2-0, they're not going to win 4 out of 5 games against the Hurricanes, in my opinion. So, very, very important game 2 on Wednesday night, and then we'll see what happens the rest of the way there. But really, I think the biggest thing, just to close things out here, is that we need to see a full 60-minute game against the Hurricanes. I don't think we've seen one yet this year. And game 1 wasn't bad overall for Boston. It was good for 45 minutes. They just let it get away in the last 15. And for the Bruins to beat a team like Carolina, they need a full 60-minute effort, really hoping we get to see one.
For me, it's high percentage shots. 40 shots looks good on the box score, but if you're taking them, from areas where goaltenders can see it, where they're able to make saves, it means nothing. So I want to see them get deep into the Carolina zone, take contested shots take shots in the slot, try to get pressure on net, because if they don't, then it's just playing into the Hurricanes' hands, and it's allowing them to get on the break quickly offensively as well, especially if there's a turnover.
Yeah. Bodies to the front of the net is the most important thing offensively for the Boston Bruins the rest of this series. They have got to get bodies to the front of the net, muck it up, and score some dirty goals. If not, they're going to be out quickly.
Yeah, and I'm not... How do I want to say this? I'm not feeling warm and fuzzy about game 2, but I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong. I have no problem being wrong when it comes to this.
Yep.
But I'm not... I just don't see this trending in the Bruins' favor.
I'm not overly optimistic either.
But time will tell. I mean, we've been wrong before. So.
The games are played on the ice for a reason. So I'm not feeling overly optimistic, but I certainly do hope that I'm wrong, that the Bruins can come back here and at least make this a real long, hard-fought series all the way down to the end.
And I will say that if the Bruins do get eliminated, Carolina, I will definitely be rooting for them the rest of the way, because they are fun to watch. All these young teams are fun to watch. It's good to see that the next generation or next couple of years of hockey, so to speak, are in good hands.
Yes. All right, Danny, thank you again, as always, for doing the show. It was awesome to have you on and get to talk some hockey with you.
Absolutely. It was a ton of fun, and let's hope that we can talk again soon.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's going to do it here for episode 65. Thank you guys all so much for watching Black and Gold Weekly. This show is brought to you by Black and Gold Productions. Would not be happening without them, so a big thank you to Mark Allred and everyone at BNG for all of the support. Also want to draw your attention once again, mention the links down in the description. Whether you're in the market for NHL apparel, Boston Bruins apparel, or college apparel, it is all down there. Please check it out. It helps out a lot and is greatly, greatly appreciated. Let's hope that we get better in Game 2 from the Bruins than we got in Game 1. And we'll see how the rest of this series goes against Carolina. But that is going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And hopefully we've got some good news for the next episode. But we'll see how this series plays out here over the next week or so. Thank you guys again so much, and go Bruins.